Okay, so it looks like we're diving into the world of senators today. You've brought a ton of info from RoleCatcher, which is awesome. It seems like you want to know more than just the basics. So we're going to dig into what it really takes to be a senator. Not just getting elected, but actually making a difference.
Yeah, it's funny you should say that because one thing RoleCatcher stresses is that it's not just a job. It's really more of a whole life choice you're making.
Mhm.
Being a senator, it's demanding, it's high pressure, and it takes a special kind of commitment.
I can imagine. I mean, when I picture a senator, I think big speeches, maybe some debates on C-SPAN. What else is there? What makes it so demanding?
Well, sure, you've got those things, but it's way more than that. RoleCatcher actually told this story about a new senator. This senator was totally overwhelmed by how much they had to learn.
Mm.
Foreign policy, agriculture, all kinds of stuff. Plus, on top of that, you're constantly in the spotlight,
Mm.
dealing with the media, trying to keep your constituents happy.
Wow, that sounds like you need to be like a master multitasker or something. And then on top of all of that, there's the campaigning and trying to raise money. I mean, that's got to be a full-time job in itself.
It really is. RoleCatcher said some senators spend half their time fundraising, especially when elections are coming up. It's nonstop meetings, events always got to be working the
It
fall.
makes sense those campaigns aren't cheap. So with all that pressure and scrutiny, why would anyone want this job?
That's the big question, right? And RoleCatcher has a pretty good answer. It's the chance to make a real difference in people's lives. Senators has so much power to change things, to help people on a national scale, sometimes even internationally.
So it's not just a job, it's like a calling almost. But where do you even begin? How do you get on that path?
Well, it might surprise you, but RoleCatcher says it often starts small. Things like internships, being a legislative assistant.
So you're not jumping straight to the Senate floor. That's actually kind of refreshing to hear. But what do those early jobs even look like? Like if I was a legislative assistant, what would I be doing all day?
RoleCatcher gives some really cool real-world examples. They talked about one former assistant who said it was like a crash course in how to make policy happen. They were going to meetings, doing research, writing memos, even answering phones. Basically, they were the senator's right-hand man or woman.
Sounds like you learn a lot and get a feel for how everything actually works. Like you're down in the trenches with everyone else.
Exactly. And then as you move up the ladder to, say, legislative council, things get even more serious.
Legislative council, huh? Now that sounds important.
It is. Basically, they're like the legal experts of the Senate. RoleCatcher says they make sure all the bills are actually legal. And they have to know all the laws already so they can spot problems. Plus, they advise the senators on how to avoid any, like, constitutional issues. It's a lot of responsibility, for sure.
Wow, so you're not just writing up laws, you're making sure they'll actually hold up. It's like being a legal guardian for legislation.
Yeah, exactly. It's a pretty crucial role.
So we've talked about this whole career path, which is super cool. But I'm guessing no matter what job you're going for, you probably need a good education, right?
Oh, absolutely. RoleCatcher is very clear about that. They say a law degree isn't always a must-have, but you definitely need a strong background in a related field. So things like political science, public administration, public policy. That's the foundation you need to understand how everything works.
Right. You got to know the theory before you can jump into the real world. Speaking of the real world, this is where it gets really interesting. RoleCatcher talks about this new thing popping up, AI in recruitment.
Yeah, that's a big one. It's changing the whole game. Basically, they're using algorithms to go through resumes and even predict how successful a candidate might be.
So they're like trying to figure out who's going to be a good senator before they even start?
Pretty much. It's all about data analysis and pattern recognition. They might look at your voting record, your speeches, even your social media.
Yeah.
They see what your political leanings are and how you might act in the future.
Wow, it's like they're building this whole profile of you based on your online activity.
Exactly. And for a high-profile position like senator, it makes sense. You've got tons of people applying. They need a way to narrow it down.
I guess it's efficient, but it also feels a little strange.
It definitely raises some ethical questions about privacy and bias.
So let's say you make it through the AI screening, you get an interview. What's next? How does RoleCatcher help with that?
This is where they really shine. They have a huge database of interview questions, over 120,000 of them.
Seriously? That's insane.
Yeah, and they have specific questions just for Senate roles.
Like what? Give me an example.
Well, instead of the usual tell me your strength stuff, they'll ask things like, how would you handle a constituent who disagrees with you? Or how would you build consensus in a divided group? They really make you think on your feet and show how you'd handle real situations.
So it's like a sneak peek into the interview room almost.
Exactly. And the best part is they don't just leave you hanging. They have this AI-powered feedback system that's incredible.
Wait, AI can give you feedback on your interview skills.
You got it.
Hmm.
You record yourself answering the practice questions. Then the AI analyzes your delivery, your body language, even your tone of voice. And it gives you personalized tips on how to improve.
So it's like having a personal coach, but without having to, actually talk to anyone.
Exactly. And it's especially helpful when you think about how important these interviews are. RoleCatcher really makes it clear that they're not just looking for policy wonks. They want someone who can connect with people, who can handle the pressure.
So what kind of things are they looking for? Besides the obvious, like knowing your stuff and being able to think on your feet.
Well, communication is huge. RoleCatcher says you need to be a really good communicator. Not just getting your ideas across, but really connecting with people from all walks of life. Plus, you got to be resilient. This job is tough. There's going to be setbacks and challenges.
You're going to have people coming at you from all sides.
Exactly. Yeah, you got to be able to handle the heat and keep going.
It's definitely not a job for the faint of heart. What I find interesting is that RoleCatcher doesn't just focus on getting elected. They also talk about what it takes to be a good leader once you're in office.
Absolutely. It's not enough just to win. You got to actually govern effectively. RoleCatcher talks about the importance of building relationships, working with people, even those who disagree with you.
So it's not just about pushing your own agenda.
Not at all. It's about finding common ground and working together to solve problems. At the end of the day, it's about serving the people you represent.
That's a good reminder. Sometimes it's easy to forget that in the middle of all the political stuff.
It's easy to get caught up in the game, but ultimately it's about public service.
So I guess the takeaway here is that becoming a senator, it's not just about checking boxes.
Right. It's not just degrees and internships and catchy slogans. It's about having the skills and the character to be a true leader.
And that's something worth thinking about even if you're not planning to run for office.
Absolutely. It's about figuring out what you believe in, what you're passionate about, and then finding ways to make a difference in the world.
Whether that's running for office or volunteering in your community or just being more engaged.
Exactly. There's so many ways to make a difference.
Well said. So to wrap things up, it seems like RoleCatcher has given us a lot to think about. It's not just a how-to guide, it's more like a roadmap to leadership.
I think that's a great way to put it. It's about the journey as much as the destination.
And that's a journey we can all take in our own way. Thanks for diving into this with me today. It's been really insightful.
My pleasure. Always happy to chat about this stuff.